Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Daft on Draft podcast. I am your host, Dalton Miller, joined by a special guest today, not Corey Cannon. He is out. He will be back tomorrow. We have a three-person podcast lined up for tomorrow. We will explain why tomorrow, but I have, in my opinion, the best, I guess you could say up and coming, but he just got a big time job. So I don't even know if he's an under the radar guy anymore. We have JP Acosta in the house. First of all, congratulations on the new gig. I saw you on TV. That was awesome. It's football season. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Thank you again. Thank you again. It has all been sort of a whirlwind, especially getting a new job 2 weeks before football season. So in my head, I'm kind of scrambling like, oh my God, everything is happening. And then college football season right around just started, NFL right around the corner. It's all been a whirlwind, but I'm having a great time.
Yeah, man, we're into week one of the NFL. It's going to be insane. But yeah, I mean, we might as well just get into it and get talking about some of this stuff. I mean, the big topics I think that we really need to get to are the two big name quarterbacks who have been going at the top of mock drafts. One of which we kind of discussed on podcasts prior, like Arch Manning probably not going to declare for the NFL draft. And I think week one against the toughest opponent he will face all year until the playoffs, I think is an indication that he definitely needs more time, if anything else, because it was pretty rough watching that game live. Did you get a chance to watch the all 22 of that game yet, or are you as unimpressed by the live viewing as I was?
So I haven't fully watched the all 22 yet. I've been watching bits and pieces from what people have posted on social media. But off of live viewing, it looked like a quarterback making his first high profile start against the defending champions. And I think much of the credit should go to Matt Patricia, who brought the funkiest non-traditional Tampas, the weirdest looks to the table, a lot of stuff that really spooked Arch Manning in his first career start, like a lot of really weird looks that you don't expect for a quarterback who is in his first career game. But the thing is, you saw the talent. In the last drive, he had a couple really nice throws down the sideline that most quarterbacks won't even take, let alone make. But the biggest thing to me was he looked like a quarterback who needed reps. He needed reps to get the mechanics, the footwork, the timing under pressure. That was the biggest thing. When pressure came, the footwork and mechanics went straight to whack. And I think the biggest example of that was the third down, fourth down, where it was an incompletion on mesh to Wingo, I think. And then he threw the incompletion on fourth down that basically ended the game. He just didn't have a good base under him. And we all know what happens when you don't have a good base under you. You're going to throw a lot of ducks. So everybody needs to have patience with the kid. We were all really excited because he's a Manning and he's really talented. He's a very talented quarterback. But he, like a lot of young quarterbacks, need time.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up Matt Patricia in that defense, because the Ohio State defense is one that we have seen over the years be pretty static overall. They run a ton of single high stuff most of the time, and Matt Patricia and that defense looked a lot different this week, and it's tough to really game plan for that. And then you get into that situation with a quarterback making his first high profile start, and he looked flustered, especially in that first half. He looked flustered. And that's kind of what you expect from a 19-year-old making his first big time start, no matter who it is. And put all that pressure on top of it, of him being a Manning and being number one in almost every single mock draft that we've seen in the past couple of weeks. It makes sense that all of that burden would be on him and he would look a little bit like a 19-year-old. So you're right. I think we do very much have to be patient with him. I think another thing that we have to be patient with, and something that we might have to be patient with all season long, unfortunately, is Lenora Sellers and the left side of that offensive line in South Carolina, because it is an abomination.
Terrible.
He has nothing to work with there. And I thought that even when he did have room to work, there was a lot that left me wanting with him, because I think he was seeing ghosts a little bit because of how poor that offensive line played.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me that stood out in terms of things that he needs to work on is I think he can be a little quicker post snap, but I think, like you said, that's seeing ghosts and his propensity to just scramble, which of course helps when you are the most physically imposing person on the field. He'll scramble too quickly. I think the safety was a little bit on him in terms of like a 3-man pressure, but like you said, that offensive line is just brutal, especially the left side. There were plenty of plays where Sellers was flushed out the pocket. The Superman play he made where he shakes off 2 defenders is because the left side of the pressure can't pick up a stunt. And so that's going to be an issue for South Carolina all season, is something that I have been wary of, especially when it comes to Lenore Sellers' film and tape, is one, who's he going to throw the ball to, and 2, who is going to protect him? Because I think for a kid like Sellers, who, despite, again, being the most physically imposing prospect on the offensive side of the ball in this draft class, which is insane to say because his starting receiver is 6'5", 240 and runs a 10-10-100. Lenore Sellers is the most physically imposing guy on the team, but you can see, like you said, he still needs time. He still needs reps, and I think that he's going to get those reps. He's going to have to take those lumps, but again, that game showed you why he's going to be picked high and also why he's going to need some time.
Yeah, and I really do wonder in the college football landscape now with NIL being what it is and Lenoris being so talented, I wonder if he goes somewhere else next year, gets out of that offensive situation that he is in currently, and has a little bit more of a runway and just more games under his belt, because that's another thing that I think we're seeing more and more of is how important experience at the college level is becoming at the NFL level. I mean, we see guys with 13, 14, 15 collegiate starts going to the NFL. It has not worked out very well for that group. So an experienced starter that I did want to bring up who played very well is Garrett Nussmeier. And he's somebody who I think is one of the most polarizing prospects in this class, because there's some people who truly believe he is a first round pick, coach's son, do it right, Tony Romo 2.0 type of guy. And there's others who think he is a day 3 pick. And I think we see it with Drew Aller as well. But I think that that's a little bit different situation. I think we've seen more NFL level traits or NFL level consistency, I would say, from somebody like Garrett Nussmeier than we have Aller. But where do you kind of fall, not just overall with somebody like Nussmeier, but in that game against Clemson as well?
So I think with Nussmeier in general, I think of a big basketball discussion, which is basketball players versus hoopers. Hoopers, you can just throw out there, regardless, they're going to get you a bucket, no matter what the situation is. Garrett Nussmeier is a hooper. He is somebody, I think, with the added importance of being behind an offensive line that's replacing almost everybody with a new receiver core. Last against Clemson, he showed that he's not making as many reckless throws. I think that was the biggest thing, the biggest issue I had, outside of just being a positional outlier when it comes to size. I mean, people can make the Tony Romo comparisons. Tony Romo is 6'3".
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because there are not enough people talking about how small Garrett Nussmeier actually is.
And you saw it during the game. He got hurt during the game. He gutted it out, which is, again, incredible props to his toughness. But people are going to make comparisons like to Joe Burrow, Tony Romo. Those guys are big dudes. Joe Burrow is a big dude. Garrett Nussmeier is not that. He's verified 6 flat, maybe 210. I don't know. But I worry a little bit about the size, but the biggest thing he did against Clemson was he showed control, and he showed that the game was in his hands. And I think when we talk about looking at Arch Manning and Lenore Sellers versus a guy like Garrett Nussmeier, who has played a lot of football, he has seen a lot of football, you can tell in just the way that he operates at the line of scrimmage how much he understands what he's seeing and how to get into different looks. I think of there's a big play in the fourth quarter against Clemson where they're showing a mugged up look, and Garrett Nussmeier walks the line, checks into another screen pass that would get them closer to the first down marker. Didn't get it, but again, it shows that experience and the reps and the nose ballitude of Garrett Nussmeier. Like, he is a hooper, and I like Hoopers. I love his ability to play the game. I am just really, really worried about his size and just some of the general recklessness that he throws the ball with.
That makes total sense to me. And everything that you said, he's a hooper, a little bit reckless with the ball. That all leads me back to Tony Romo because I know Tony and I know that he is a legit hooper too. Not just as a football player, but as a legit hooper that he can play. On the other side of the ball, Cade Klubnik, somebody who we have really high hopes for as an athlete, somebody with great arm talent. We've started to put it together, I thought, last year, and then a rough week in week one. And honestly, when you look at the landscape of college football, there was a lot of really sloppy play across the board, especially on offense. And I think early in the year, we always see the offense is a little bit slow to get going. And that brings up, do we need maybe not a preseason, but like another red white game, another blue white? Like, do we need more scrimmages going on? Do we need a tune up game against an FCS opponent before we get into these big games? Because we had 3 top 10 matchups this week. I didn't think a single one of those offenses looked good. So I think, what do you think about Cade? What do you think he has what it takes to kind of retool and get things going? And what do you think about his NFL draft prospects overall?
Every time I watch Cade Klubnik, and I know that it's very early and he has propensity in the athleticism to change it. I cannot get the Daniel Jones factor out of my head of when he is under pressure, he is a completely different quarterback. I think he is a very good athlete, but against LSU, he showed that if it's not there, he's going to run. And LSU at the end of the game started sending those delayed blitzes with Harold Perkins, who is a better athlete than Cade Klubnik, and just shut him down, shut the offense down. Of course, Antonio Williams didn't play, which has to be considered, but I just worry a little bit about his skittishness under pressure. It's the ability, or not the ability, but he drifts a lot. He drifts backwards. And so that's the biggest thing you don't want to do because you're welcoming pressure on yourself. And unless you are a top 1% athlete, you're not going to be able to make yourself out of those situations. I really worry about this stuff under pressure. But when everything's clicking, he can get from A to B. He has an ability to throw a nice deep ball. He throws a really pretty football. It's just when it's starting to fire, when things aren't going as planned, what kind of quarterback are you? And I think we're going to see what kind of quarterback Klubnik is because that offensive line got pincushioned the entire game. So we're going to see what he does under pressure through the rest of the season.
Yeah, you brought up pressure, and I think it's a fitting transition to giving up a ton of pressure, which is unfortunately what Caden Proctor did against Florida State. Somebody who I was very, very high on over the summer. I thought that his tape was absolutely dominant, and he got whooped against Florida State. And that Alabama team, I mean, how much of a leash do you think DeBoer has there? Like, can he really survive another 9-4 year in Tuscaloosa?
It's so tough because you could reasonably say DeBoer could survive if the 3 losses were to top 10 teams. He has lost so many games to unranked opponents. That is an issue. It's not the losses to the number 1 teams in the country, the top 5s, your Ohio States, your LSUs now. It's losing to Vanderbilt. It's losing to a Florida State team that was almost entirely new. And not only are they losing to these unranked teams, I thought Alabama on Saturday looked out-schemed. They weren't prepared. They were not prepared. They're incredibly penalized, which I know started popping up at the end of the Saban years, but that is the most undisciplined Alabama team I have seen in a long time, and that falls on DeBoer. But when it comes to Caden Proctor, I wasn't as high as some people were on Proctor, largely just because I think the foot speed is just really tough, especially on an island. And I think to maximize him better at that size, he might have to move inside the guard. But you saw Florida State just teeing off on him with speed. and he just couldn't keep up. He could not keep up with the speed. He had a couple penalties. And again, Alabama just didn't look prepared for what Florida State was going to do to them. Gus Malzahn had the Alabama defense just formation to hell. They weren't even doing anything like insane. Like they would run power read, they'd run counter, they'd run end arounds, and then Tommy Castellanos would keep the ball. That was it. And Alabama looked like they were the slower team. But offensively, they couldn't move the ball. They couldn't run the ball. Of course, you kind of fall into a hole, which sucks because you take away the thing that they're able to do, which is Caden Proctor is a man mover, but just the lack of foot speed really concerns me with Proctor and his NFL prospects.
Yeah, I mean, he probably needs to realistically lose 30 pounds.
Yeah.
You think 30
Yeah.
pounds?
I don't know what they have him listed at. It's the same thing with Darnell Washington. Whatever you list him at, add 30, because it's not his weight. Like whatever they list him at, they're lying.
I think the next thing that I wanted to bring up, and I wanted to get back to the quarterbacks here for a second, but Carson Beck, shout out to him against a Notre Dame team that there is not a single unit in college football or the NFL that I like watching more than the Notre Dame defense. The way that they're coached, I absolutely adore them. And Carson Beck really was one of the only quarterbacks this week where I looked and I was like, that is no doubt an NFL player. Does he have the ability to be a high-end NFL quarterback? Absolutely not. He doesn't have that, in my opinion. I think you're looking at somebody who is a low-level starter or a very good backup at the NFL level. But I thought after how last year ended, transferring to Miami, trying to replace the number one pick in the NFL draft, I thought that he looked really good against a team that I thought was going to beat that Miami team on Sunday night.
Yeah, I think he needed this game. I think a lot of Miami draft prospects needed that Notre Dame game to kind of reestablish themselves. But Beck, I mean, the first thing that stood out when you watched him, I had a lot of questions about the velocity, especially coming off UCL surgery. I still have questions about the velocity, but the biggest thing is, for most part, like he knew where to go with the ball. He knew how to get from 1 to 2 to 3 when it was clean. Now, when it gets muddy, the one-handed catch by CJ Daniels should not have been thrown. That should not have happened. And there were a couple plays in the fourth quarter where I'm like, man, please don't do that again. Like, thank you, but don't do that again. But when you talk about, like you said, he looks like an NFL player. How high does that get you? I don't know. I don't think he's going to be like a high-level NFL starting quarterback. But when you look at someone who just knows how to run an offense, I think he can get you out of some situations with his mind and with his arm. But like you said, like he looked like an NFL player last night, and good for him because he needed that, especially after Georgia just didn't give him any help at all.
Yeah, and you were talking about Miami draft prospects who needed big games.
Oh my goodness.
It didn't show up on the box score, but Rueben Bain Jr.
Oh my goodness.
Absolute. I can't remember the left tackle's name for Notre Dame, but he's definitely not Joe Alt. I can tell you that. And Rueben Bain Jr. absolutely dominated that matchup in this game. He must have had 5 or 6 pressures that were absolutely dominating top 5 in the NFL draft level plays. And this is from a young man who is like 6'3", 275. Like, we're not even talking like 6'6", 275. We're talking about a chopped up bowling ball who can bend and explode. Man, he's got the juice, doesn't he?
He was dominant. That might have been the best single game performance of any player this week when it came to the stakes, when it came to calling your name and showing up against primetime competition. Rueben Bain Jr. was dominant. I was a little lower on him entering this year because I just wanted to see the explosiveness come back and some of the flexibility, the change of direction, because last year he just looked stiff. He looked stiff and slow. And then the first pass attempt for CJ Carr that went downfield, he dipped under the left tackle and got a pressure. And I was like, okay, that's all I needed to see. That is everything I needed to see. He is a bull in a china shop when he's healthy. Just that collection of speed to power and just the force that he plays with, especially as a run defender, where I don't think that got as much credit as the pass rush, obviously, because his pass rush is easier to see, but he dominated as a run defender for a Miami team that just looked more physical this year. I was so pleasantly surprised by what Bain put on tape. And like you said, like he put out top 10 draft pick performance against a Notre Dame offensive line that is going through some changes, but that's a talented group. Like that is not like they're cobbling together transfers and 2 and 3 stars. It's a Notre Dame offensive line, and he teed off on them for the entire game.
And on the other side of the ball, probably the best running back duo in the nation. Penn State also has a claim to that, and I think Texas does as well. But Jadarian Price and Julian Love, they couldn't get it going. I think Price had that one big 30-yard run in the first half, but I don't think Love had a 10-yard run the entire game. I don't think he had one explosive play the entire game, and that's really impressive by Miami to be able to hold that tight, because those are two extremely talented football players.
I was shocked at how little Notre Dame used Jeremiah Love. It was so weird. You're starting a freshman quarterback making his first career start in Miami against a defense that's going to tee off on you, and 6 of your first 7 plays are a pass. What are we doing here? What is it exactly that you're trying to do if you are Notre Dame?
Because, and I don't even think Love was on the field for 90% of those that first drive. Like
he was gone for a good majority of like the second and third quarter, and everybody thought he was hurt. And then he came back in and hurdled the dude and was like, "Oh, he's healthy. Just why aren't you using him?" It was really, really weird by Mike Denbrock, who I thought had a really good year offensively last year, but just an odd game for Jeremiah Love.
I thought so too, but there were even times last year where Love would kind of disappear, and then come back in, and you would think he's hurt and he's not. And I just don't understand how you can watch his tape. And I love Price too. I think he's a good football player. I think he's going to be a decent NFL player too. But Love is special. That's a special physical talent. I just don't understand why you're not getting him the ball 15 plus times a game. It's like the 20, you rush it 30 times and you are 90% chance to win the football game. It's not a good stat, but I need Love to touch the ball at least 15 times a game. He's too darn talented not to. He's
the most explosive player on the team. And that's saying that as good as Jordan Faison played last night, that's saying how highly I think of Jaden Greathouse, who also had a weird game where every target was like off target for him. So even saying that Jeremiah Love is the most explosive player on that team, and the fact that you couldn't get him involved until late in the fourth quarter is an issue. But I think it's game 1. They probably should be able to figure it out late in the season. That's just it's an interesting blip that I'm going to take note of throughout the rest of the season.
Are there any other NFL draft prospects that really caught your eye this week that you want to give a shout out to before we head out?
A couple, both on the offensive side of the ball, surprisingly. First, Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon. That is a grown-ass man. That is a grown man. That is tight end 1. He made some insane plays against Montana State, which, of course, yes, FCS competition. Montana State's a good football team. That is a very good FCS team, and he made them look like children. Everybody saw a touchdown on the RPO where he kind of just disregarded the corner. It looked like a play out of College Football 26 where you go and try and tackle him high, and he just shrugs everybody off. But he showed a lot of physicality in the run game and just overall looked like a really well-rounded prospect. And again, they were giving him jet sweeps. Anytime you give a tight end jet sweeps, I am intrigued. And then the second guy probably isn't as high on a lot of people's lists, but Georgia Tech guard Keelan Rutledge is one of my go watch him if you want to get fired up. He was absolutely dirting people in the Colorado game. He feels like he and Haynes King feel like the embodiment of what Brent Key wants to be as an offense, and he was just absolutely cratering people against Colorado on down blocks when he was out in the move. When he got to the second level, he was pinballing people. Haynes King would just run behind him. So I think he played really well. And then Francis Magnoa and Enes Cooper from Miami, just dominant as run blockers. It felt like every big play Miami had in the run game, running behind 73 and 61. Magnoa is a people mover as a run blocker. Just, I think the best play was where I think the running back had gotten stopped 2 yards short. Magnoa comes in, puts his head down, and then he gets the first down. That is the type of force that I want in the run game. So those guys stood out to me.
Yeah, man. Magnoa, CC is something else. He was absolutely, you're right. He was absolutely moving people. I also wanted to bring up, I thought Dante Moore looked really good in that Oregon game as well. It'll be interesting to see what he's able to put together this year. But the one guy I really wanted to point out, just because he's the second best linebacker on his own football team, but I think he's going to be a really good NFL player, is Arvell Reese, Ohio State. He is talk about a grown man. He is a grown man, and Sonny Styles obviously and rightfully gets a lot of the attention because he is 6'4". He is 240 pounds. He is a former safety and an absolute freak of nature. I think he's going to get drafted at like 17 years old, and even though he's been in college for 4 years, he's got that youthfulness to him as well. But Arvell Reese, man, he was all over the football field against the Texas Longhorns, and that Ohio State defense is going to be an absolute problem this year. And I think they're going to be a problem without dominant edge rushers like we have seen over the years. And I think it's because of that second and third level that they have.
I mean, Arvell Reese was just, you said Sonny Styles like 6'4", 240, and Arvell Reese is just as big, pretty much just as fast. It's like Matt Patricia came to the college level and cloned Jamie Collins twice. And so they have both of them at the second level. What the stuff that he was doing in terms of in man coverage against Jack Endries, who is a good tight end, who is going to be a drafted tight end, the stuff that he was doing as a spy, the run game, he was all over the field. And like you said, Sonny Styles gets most of the attention, rightfully so. He played well, but Reese was the most eye-popping defensive player for Ohio State. And that's saying something because Ohio State had a couple big players from Jermaine Matthews. Caleb Downs was fantastic. But Arvell Reese, man, what an introduction. You know, if this is his introduction to the NFL draft world, to the college football world, that's how you make an introduction.
Absolutely. JP, thank you so much for being on tonight, man. It was an absolute blast. This is actually the first time that I have gotten to podcast with JP, which is a darn shame because he has been one of my favorite people in the industry for a very long time now. Once again, thank you for coming on, brother. Hope to have you on again. I know that you are going to be very busy during this football season. And we all very much are, but I do appreciate you hopping on with me tonight.
Of course, we gotta make this like second, third. We got to talk more about ball. I love being on with you and Corey. So this is awesome.
Absolutely, man. And listen, we will be back tomorrow. We're gonna have a 3-headed monster tomorrow. We will get into exactly why during that episode. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Daft on Draft podcast. I'm Dalton Miller. I love you. Goodbye.